Hello, my name's Mitch. I'm currently attending Fanshawe, and I'm in the architectural technology program. I'm a student member of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth.
Oh, great.
I recently read a legal paper posted on the paper. It was written a couple of years ago by a couple, I think it was Harvard and possibly Yale legal professors, entitled Conspiracy Theory, and it was a kind of advisory paper written for the government to how to respond to activist groups. And they kept mentioning a crippled epistemology. And for those who don't know what epistemology is, it's how we attain information, how we get information by reading or secondhand information. But how can we rebut these types of analysis when obviously people involved are doing the research, we're getting information straight from this, where they're denying their animation only went up to the split second before a complete collapse. How do we respond to the people who say you have a crippled epistemology, you have a narrow spectrum of where you're getting your information from? How do we respond to that in a way that doesn't,
Well, okay, there's a really good example of that. The Fifth Estate had Jonathan Kay on there, and he's the publisher of Popular Mechanics, and he's saying basically the same thing. But that's where I think these people are planted. They're asked, as a matter of fact, there's a press conference happening with architects and engineers on February the 19th, which is going to have a big media release saying that they have now 1,000 qualified members of architects and engineers from around the world who all agree that Twin Towers could not have collapsed, and Building 7 especially, by fires and falling debris, especially Building 7, or even a jetliner crashing into the Twin Towers. So NIST has come out apparently just recently with a new explanation of how this all happened and why the towers collapsed the way they did. And it's, of course, they're trying to cover their asses. They got to do that because the establishment has too much to lose. So we just keep on fighting. And to join a group like Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth is one of the best because they're making the most headway. Because these are guys who study architecture and they study engineering. And it's right there. You can't fool people that way with the real evidence. But all you have to do is come back to someone that's in a coffee shop and say, look, that may be one thing that you don't agree with. What about the 1,000 others that don't add up? What about the put options? What about the money made? What about the 9/11 Commission report where all those guys were lying?
In the paper, what they say though is that, with the C word, the conspiracy is, it's easy to wrap those things into the conspiracy theory, and they just kind of play it off as though everything can be explained by the conspiracy theory when there are facts behind things. So that's
what I want to share with you. Here are some examples of historically proven conspiracies. You can actually look on the internet and Google the conspiracy theories and find out which ones have been proven. Well, look at them all. The plot to kill Julius Caesar. I mean, that was a conspiracy. It was proven by the Roman senators. We know that. So let's get down to the basics here. Of course, there are conspiracies, and many of them have been proven true. And as Dylan Avery says, it's not a conspiracy theory if you can prove it. And then we've got, of course, Martin Luther King Jr. How many people know that it was proven in a court of law in Memphis in 1999 that he was assassinated by a conspiracy of the US government? That's been proven by a lawyer which represented his wife's family. There's a book written about that, which I can tell you about later if you want. And of course, Richard Nixon and the Watergate conspiracy, that's proven. Iran-Contragate, that's another one. Operation Paperclip to move top scientists out of Nazi Germany. MK Ultra, mind control, happened even in Montreal, right here. That's a conspiracy. The Mafia in Italy, if you don't think that's a conspiracy, go to Sicily. And the Dreyfus Affair, that's my favorite one. Émile Zola in France in 1898. If you're a historian or a historical buff, check out Émile Zola in France, 1894, and the Dreyfus Affair. It's wonderful. And you get that on video, apparently. I've got it on VHS, I'm not sure if it's on DVD, but it's a wonderful story how the French government was involved in a conspiracy, and one guy, Emile Zola, a writer, along with the wife of Dreyfus, who'd been sent away to Devil's Island, brought down the whole of the French military regime. It was just like that. One guy can do it.
There's all the conspiracy theorists and the C word. Labeling someone as a conspiracy theorist is a convenient way to discredit them. It's similar to calling someone a Holocaust denier or anything like that. You immediately, you might as well just end the conversation right there, because anyone who looks at any of this evidence that you presented and doesn't recognize it, that at least the official story is itself a conspiracy theory, and that there's a lot of valid information here that needs to at least be very much considered by a new 9/11 investigation, is practicing cognitive dissonance, where you recognize true information, like scholars for 9/11 Truth, engineers for 9/11 Truth, the people who built the World Trade Center that said it's two separate buildings made to take multiple plane attacks, and that it's absolutely impossible that those steel columns in the middle could have been disintegrated like that. So I mean, when you're operating against cognitive dissonance like that, there's no way you're going to be able to prove that to anybody. Just tell them that the official story is 19 people from Saudi Arabia at the hands of someone in a cave were responsible for breaking the world's most sophisticated airspace, you know what I mean, and doing all these next to impossible moves in airplanes that they were proven not to have known how to fly, had trouble flying Cessna planes and this and that, Muhammad Atta, all these things. Anyway, so my question, I apologize, is, well, the other thing I want to say that I really appreciated how you presented this, in the sense that how does this affect us in the future? Why is it important to remember 9/11 and all the people who died for all these things? There's more than anything, I just want to say thank you. It was a great presentation, and I really appreciated that Alex. Like, most people say to you, well, why do you care about 9/11 and this and that? That's all the, you know, that I've encountered on the streets and stuff, and talking to different places and whatever else. That's the biggest one. How does that affect us in Canada, and why should we continue? And thank you very much.
Understand the logic of one aspect of what you're referring to.
Yes.
It's the idea that there was no warning, there was warning. The government had claimed they had no warning of these events, and then you said, in fact, there were warnings everywhere internationally. So I don't quite understand. Are you implying that these were real warnings of real threats that the government either incompetently ignored or deliberately tried to downplay? Or are you saying that these were fabricated warnings?
Oh no, they were not fabricated warnings, no. You see, what happened was that the patsies were actually being tracked in Hamburg, for example.
These intentional people participating, you're saying, or they were being used, the patsies?
Oh, they were being used.
They didn't know they were part of the plot?
No, no.
Okay.
They were set up. They were told, you know, if you do this, we'll do that for you. We're going to give you a plane ticket to go to the United States. We're going to give you training at a little airbase in Florida.
Yeah.
And you can, you know, you can get this much payment. You can have a lot of fun there. We're going to be providing all sorts of entertainment for you.
But they didn't think they were part of a plot to do terrorist activities.
Well, here's a golden opportunity. I mean, what kind of a job do you got right now? We're going to give you a job where you can make a real difference. And so they would just drag them around by the nose. And then when they were finished doing the job of being reported to be in this place at that time, and especially on those video cameras in the airports,
right.
Then that was, you know, the key bit of evidence was to show that there were 19 patsies involved in this so-called hijackers.
Okay, so I won't take much longer, but just to, you're saying therefore that independent observation, so-called, from other countries,
yes,